Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei married Tiamat part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support the once Triumphant for writing that awesome fanfic and also make sure to comment on this story, link in description. Let's start this video. The brown-haired bartender remained silent as he wiped down the counter with a piece of cloth, cleaning all of the spilled alcohol in the process as he moved down to the other side of the counter. Issei Haidu, a 22-year-old male, once a member of the infamous group Perverted Trio, was currently working at the red light district as a bartender for a strip club. His normal attire for work was a black tuxedo. He hadn't really gotten over his perverted tendencies since Kuo Academy, but they had been turned down significantly due to him seeing all the ass and titties a man could dream of. Although he wasn't able to touch the girls when they are working, he did have a good relationship with them. And if he was being honest with himself, he considered himself to be a mentor to these hot beauties. He had helped explain to these women what most guys wanted in the past year, and since then the strip club Fallen Angels has thrived and flourished into something more than just a simple strip club. His boss Azazel was astonished by his accomplishments, that he gave Issei a discount which allowed him to have fun with the top-paid strippers and not pay a dime for a lap dance. Needless to say, Issei chose the woman with the biggest rack, the one who goes by Kala. And boy did she take him to the exotic pleasure town called Heaven. Good night, Issei. I will see you tomorrow. A certain charming girl cried out, who Issei was very familiar with. Her name was Yuma, a girl in good terms with Issei. The brown-haired boy could see her walk out of the changing room, waving at Issei. Yuma was a beautiful raven-haired girl, with her hair stopping just at her back. She was short, one of the shortest girls out of all of the workers, but that seemed to amplify her curves. She was the same age as Issei, but still looked like a high school student, which was surrounded with controversy. Good night, Yuma. Oh, and good night, Rainer. Issei joyfully waved as he looked up from the counter to see Yuma at the door and Rainer making her way to the said door. Rainer was Yuma's older sister by 2 years, but unlike Yuma, she was taller and larger in her feminine areas. Rainer had a more mature aspect look to her, while Yuma had a more childish look, a typical sibling relationship. The older sister, however, didn't say anything back to Issei and continued walking. She took her sister's free hand in the process and left Issei alone in the club, with everyone else already departed. He let loose a sigh, realizing that she was still mad at him. It had been months since their official breakup, yet she didn't treat him like she did throughout the years of dating. She was the one to break up with him as well. Saying that she couldn't be in a serious relationship with Issei, Rainer was the one to trigger the breakup. It hurt him and tore his heart apart, but he got over the feeling in just a few months. The girls had comforted the brown-haired boy and cheered him up since he was in a way a part of the Fallen Angels family. I see you're having trouble with your ex-girlfriend, a voice came from behind, startling Issei, which made him turn around and kick Azazel. Hey. Easy there, it's just me, said Azazel as he ducked underneath the kick. The man had trained Issei in martial arts when he first started in the strip club Fallen Angels in case of any troubling people. But he didn't expect Issei to try using it on him every time he snuck up on the boy. The infuriated boy glared at Azazel. Azazel. Don't do that to me, one of these days I might die from a heart attack because of you. He barked, only for Azazel to smile in return. Issei's boss, Azazel, is a tall businessman. Although Issei had grown to the height of 5'11" inches, Azazel would beat him by 4 additional inches. He had an average frame similar to Issei, but what set them apart is his black hair and his stylized golden bangs. He has a black goatee as well, and a pair of purple orbs for an eye, which seemed to be the repeated theme with most of the girls, for the majority of them had violet or purple eyes. When Issei first applied to work at Fallen Angels, he was dressed up in a black tuxedo with a white long-sleeved shirt underneath and a bonus of a single red necktie. That perfect gentleman look had told Rainer that Issei was more of a serious man than what his face carved, which she fairly adored. Oddly enough, Azazel didn't wear any of the same attiring in the interview. Instead, he wore a white t-shirt and some loose basketball shorts. And now, Azazel was wearing grey sweatpants and a plain blue shirt with white bold words knotted "How to keep an idiot busy, see back of the shirt." On the back was the exact same words, but the word back was replaced with the word front. Sorry Issei, but you should know by now that I like to sneak up on my employees. It keeps them on their toes, the man spoke cheerfully, ignoring the death stare Issei was sending him. Yeah, and one of these days I am going to beat your ass for it, Issei replied harshly, to make sure Azazel won't pull the same move. The black-haired man grinned and took a seat on a nearby stool. And when that dream of yours turns into a reality, I will gift you with my sweet collection of video games and porn. Azazel mocked his employee with a grin. Whatever. What the hell do you want now? Issei asked, continuing to clean the counter while Azazel glared at him. He was sure that it was going to be something smart and witty, since the guy he was dealing with was indeed Azazel. Oh, don't be like that, Azazel said with a mischievous smile on his face. We are friends, aren't we? That means we help each other out. Cut the crap, will you? Just tell me what you want and go away. Curtly spoke Issei. He wasn't a fool and knew that Azazel had done something that he was pretty sure he would be against. Azazel in response laughed at his abrupt behavior, but Issei, don't you want to feel the soft mounts of a woman's breasts? Azazel teased as he leaned forward with a devilish smile. Boobs that surpass Rainer's jumbos. Can you even imagine it? The boy didn't answer at first, mainly because of the obstacle that was thrown at him. Sure, he had experienced the company of some of the girls, but he did miss dearly on what he and Rainer had in the past. He missed riding home on his motorcycle with Rainer's breasts pushed up against his back, as well as seeing Rainer wearing the famous naked apron. Hell, he even missed the times when Rainer insisted on cuddling while watching television. He missed the warmth of a woman's touch, that's what it was. However, this was his boss Azazel, who was helping him out. Which meant that there was something obviously missing, something Azazel wasn't telling him in advance. The conceding Issei sighed. Yes, he meekly admitted the truth in a whisper, embarrassed by the soon-to-be laughter that was going to come crashing down on him, because deep down Azazel was his friend and friends are dicks like Azadithwing. Well, then you are in luck, Issei. But that said, Azazel took out his phone and dialed a number he seemed to know. They agreed to meet. Yeah, the place I showed you before. I will send him on his way then. Issei, listening to the swift phone call, raised an eyebrow as he glared at Azazel with a perplexed look. He didn't hear what the other person was saying, but judging by that smug look on his face, he could tell that it wasn't anything holy. What? Why are you giving me that look? I just got you a date for the night. He quipped, standing up from his stool, stretching his arms as he did so. You better hurry or else you will be late. It is. Issei paused as he checked the watch on his right wrist. 4:30 in the morning on a Sunday. I don't think there is any place open to take this date you have gotten me. Issei deadpanned as he began to clean the shot glasses. However, to Issei's surprise, he was being ushered out of the bar by Azazel, who had somehow managed to get behind him before he knew what happened. McDonald's is open 24 hours a day, you can take her there. Oh, because that is every girl's dream. Came Issei's snarky reply as he was rushed out of the building named Fallen Angeles. Every girl wants to go a super fancy fast food restaurant on their first date with a guy. Yep, now hurry along now. Azazel cheerfully shoved Issei out of the club, followed by tossing him his black leather jacket. And try not to piss her off. Okay. See you later, Issei. The brown-haired boy removed the jacket that covered his face, revealing an annoyed boy with a frown. He knew how to handle women and knew how to please them. After all, he was the one that taught Azazel of the new freaky-deaky stuff that even the black-haired fool didn't know about. If it wasn't for him, Azazel wouldn't have been able to get in a relationship with that Gabriel girl he heard so much about. But he never got the chance to actually meet the person, or at least that is what he thought. Putting on his jacket, Issei made his way to his motorcycle that was painted midnight black with purple custom and raging flames. His helmet matched the theme with his motorcycle, also having the same custom flames. His father had helped him pay for his motorcycle when he turned 18, but nevertheless, it was his and he had grown attached to this motorcycle. It was his way of coping with stress. Actually, his way of coping with stress had become fixing things. After his breakup with Rainer, he had put most of his money he saved into this motorcycle as well as his apartment. In short, he was pimping out his crib and ride because it took his mind off of his only ex-girlfriend. After putting on his helmet because of safety reasons, he warmed up his motorcycle and backed out of his parking spot, only for his phone to start buzzing in response to a text. Pulling it out, he got a message from Azazel saying, "BTW, in case I forgot to mention this, she is waiting inside your home. XD lol sry number notsri." These words were then followed by more emoticons that were made up of words. He does realize that there is an emoji section, right? Was Issei's first thought before realizing what the man also told him. Wait, she is in my home. What the hell, Azazel? Revving up the engine, he kicked it into full throttle, not caring in the slightest if he ran a red light or not. He had some stranger, not just a stranger, a female in his home where his porn and video games were out for the entire world to see. If she entered his bedroom and saw all that, then it would be over before it even started. She would think he was some kind of nerd who plays video games and masturbates to porn. He couldn't allow that, no matter what. Especially since he didn't know who this girl was. She had a rack that surpassed Rainer's, so he needed to find out no matter the consequences. Not noticing the police car parked at the four-way intersection, he continued to rush home as the police sirens began to track behind him. Attention. Pull over to the side of the road before you become one of the world's dumbest criminals. Came one of the cops' voices through the PA system as it pursued Issei, following him as he turned a ridiculous amount of times. Shit, I can't lead them to my home, and I don't feel like dealing with some police. Sorry, my mysterious date, but you aren't worth getting arrested for. The boy muttered before slowing down. A lone tear went down the left side of his cheek. His chance for a new girlfriend had gone with that tear. Eventually, he came to a full stop at the side of the road just a mile away from his apartment. He could picture the hot beauty rummaging through his porn and becoming disgusted with her prepared date. Well, there can only be one man who has that motorcycle, and that is Issei Haidu. He got it for his 18th birthday if I recall, a male voice very familiar to Issei getting closer to the motorcycle. Issei whirled around to see Mitsuda in a police officer's blue uniform, something he didn't expect to see at all. He hadn't seen Mitsuda since he turned 19, and from what he knew Mitsuda went to attend college. So why was he here? Mitsuda, is that you? He asked incredulously to the point of nearly shouting. Mitsuda as a police officer was the last thing he expected to see. Not so fast, Mitsuda denied as he wagged his finger back and forth before pointing his index finger at his badge. It is Officer Mitsuda to you. The brown-haired boy deadpanned, isn't it Officer Arasi, you dimwit? Mitsuda's mask of confidence washed away like a sand castle after getting hit by a wave. Nevertheless, Issei, you were breaking the law and me and Motohama. Motohama is an officer too, shouted the shocked Issei, no longer caring for waking the people up in the neighborhood. Yo Issei, it's good to see ya. Came the happy Motohama's voice through the POS system, not noticing the tick mark on Mitsuda, growing from the annoyance of being rudely interrupted. The biker waved at the police car before replying to Mitsuda in a pleading voice. Before you give me a ticket or anything of sorts, I have a damn good reason on why I am breaking a law. Oh? Do you now? Mitsuda's voice was laced with sarcasm as he crossed his arms, and what reason would that be? Was your mother dying, or did your father throw his back out? The boy didn't laugh at his obvious jokes. No, but I am guessing that is what you get as excuses from people like me. Issei mumbled, who was met by a firm nod from the police officer. You have no idea, my man. Issei cleared his throat and told Mitsuda everything. First of all some random girl was sent to my home, and I have no idea who this girl is, and I need to keep her out of my bedroom. At first, Mitsuda didn't take his word. However, Issei had a deal he could make to satisfy the friend police in front of him. If you let me go, I will give you guys VIP passes for the strip club I work at, maybe free drinks too. There was no way Mitsuda, one of Issei's best friends from the past, could nullify this effect called perverted dealing. VIP passes for a month and you got a deal. Mitsuda whispered near Issei's ears, who caved into the bribe. The brown-haired biker cheered on the inside, thank God, I knew that guy still had his perverted nature. Deal? Mitsuda gave him a smug grin and declares in a loud voice. That is all, sorry for pulling you over. Have a good night, perfectly innocent fine young man. Issei waved goodbye before speeding off almost immediately. One thought was on his mind, I wonder how many girls he had with when pulling them over. If he took my bribe then girls must get off pretty easy, then maybe I should become a cop too, seems quite beneficial. Issei eventually made it to his apartment complex after the mundane matter and quickly parked his bike in the garage for all of the residents that lived there. He had no time to waste, he needed to get to his room quickly. He ignored the elevator and went straight to the stairs, sighing before sprinting up the stairs with rush. His apartment room was located on floor 8, so his athletic skills was all he could depend on. Going over 2 steps per step, he rapidly ran up the stairs. Issei was halfway there until his phone began to ring, caused by a phone call from his dear friend he could give a lesser crap about. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your cans all over the place. It was Vali, his dear old friend. What is it, Vali? I don't have time for your shit. Issei angrily responded as he continued to run up the stairs. His stride didn't break, which was surprising, but when you are a bartender like him, then you can do the impossible, sometimes. Hey Issei, I was just wondering if you're down for some Star Wars Battlefront IV. Sorry but I can't, there's a girl I don't know dwelling in my apartment. Issei rambled, despite the fact that he had been waiting for Vali to get the video game. He was waiting almost 2 months, and it seemed like Vali finally got the digital version. If it wasn't for him, the gray-haired boy named Vali wouldn't even have a social life. Vali was probably the most awkward bartender he had met during his lifetime after becoming a bartender at Fallen Angeles. The guy had the charming looks that could steal any girl, for sure prettier than the other pretty boy Issei knew in the past. Which was shocking, because if Vali was truly Azazel's son, there was no way that Vali could ever shut up. Issei couldn't allow Vali's dullness to continue and taught the man how to actually function like an active human being, which was great because the two became best friends during the process. Vali would always have his back in fights, and the two had something similar. They loved video games. He was, however, slightly jealous of Vali for his breathtaking girlfriend. Although at the time Issei was in a relationship with Rainer, so Issei couldn't exactly show it in public. Vali fucking Lucifer, get your ass in this bed right now. I am in the mood to fuck, and you will be doing just that. The most definitely familiar voice, Issei heard it countless times whenever he engaged in a phone call with Vali. Issei didn't even have to think about who it was, there could only be one woman in this world with such passionate but feminine voice. I gotta go, Issei. Maybe some other time, sorry for interrupting. Issei didn't even get a chance to utter a goodbye before the call ended, although he wasn't going to say he was going to laugh as Volley for being so whipped to his girlfriend. However, these snarky comments that flooded the young man's mind were short-lived, for the memory of a girl in his apartment came back to his mind. Not wasting any more time, he opens the door that leads to his floor and rushes towards his apartment door as quickly and quietly as possible in an attempt to not awaken his neighbors. Most of his neighbors he was in a good relationship with, but there was this one that was a complete bitch to him, and he didn't know why. He didn't do anything wrong, at least that he was aware of, but this girl treated him like the true scum of the earth. So for the safety of maintaining this relationship and not dealing with the identified person, he moved quietly to his apartment door. He pulled out his key and unlocked the apartment door, which led him to pause outside of his door after pushing it open. Wait, how did she get into my apartment if the door is locked? I know Rainer had an identical key, but didn't she return it to me? His thoughts then drifted to Azazel and he began to fume. That fucking bastard. He was probably the one that stole my key to play my video games. I should have known those wins were obvious and too easy. As he walked into his apartment, he closed the door behind him and called out in a loud voice. If there is anyone in here, specifically a hot gorgeous babe, then please reveal yourself now. Otherwise, I will not be held responsible for giving you a beatdown for trying to creep up on me. Issei's apartment wasn't the biggest apartment ever. It had in total 5 rooms if you considered the bathroom as a room, but besides that, it was the usual apartment style, a living room, kitchen, bedroom which was connected to the bathroom, and a laundry room. Seeing that he got no response, he took off his jacket and slipped off his formal shoes. Now had these been some sneakers, he probably would have kicked them off in an attempt to see how far they could go flying. He then pondered on calling Azazel and asking him if that lady he sent over to Issei's home had left, but the odds of Azazel actually picking up was slim. Hell, Issei would have better luck quitting video games. He quickly undressed himself to his boxers, taking his phone out of his pants as well as his wallet, and put his tuxedo into the washing machine and set it to cold rinse and made sure it was on delicate wool cycle before starting it. Luckily for Issei, his washing machine was somewhat brand new and was in a high quality condition. Because with how many times he washed his clothes, he needed a strong and firm one that would take beatings time to time. After putting on some black sweatpants and a grey tank top he loved so much, he closed the dryer door and left the clean clothes in there after debating to fold them later. For now, since he had no girl in his home, he was going to text Volley and ask if he had time to play some video games. Do you want to play some Star Wars Battlefront IV after you are done with Issei muttered as he quickly typed out his text to Volley before sending it and placing his phone back in his pockets. Angel, play some music. He said with an indoor voice, not particularly talking to anyone in the house. Now no one was in his room, but he got a response from the black little cylinder that was resting on one of his shelves. Starting. Musical playlist 3. Issei didn't know if this was a sign, because the song that first played was Worst Mistake by Fivefold. Not really bothering about it, he began his scavenging in an attempt to find some leftovers from yesterday, but ended up coming empty-handed. DCH, looks like it is macaroni and cheese. Issei clicked his tongue, closing the fridge he had opened. He moved to a shelf to get a small box of store macaronis and a medium-sized pot from the bottom shelf. Seeing that he had some time before he could put the small noodles in the boiling pot, he went to his bedroom to turn on his gaming device and get a game running. Issei believed that if you can't eat in game, you are not a true gamer, so he stuck true to his ideals. Opening the door to his bedroom, he was met by the sight of a barely lit room, but that didn't stop him from seeing what he saw, which made him stop dead in his tracks, with both his blood and skin freezing in spot. Sitting comfortably on his customized purple and black gaming chair was a busty, awe-inspiring Wamano, a reputable goddess to be more descriptive. The specified individual had long pale blue hair that he just wanted to twirl his fingers in for some odd reason, a dark blue reptilian-like eyes that could ensnare any man with a look, and this purifying smell that was causing him to feel like he was diving into his teenage years again. Her porcelain-like skin was covered by a blue dress that reached her knees, and her curves were great. No, by Issei Haidu standards, great couldn't even describe it, more like heavenly perfect. Her breasts weren't as big as Kala's, but boy was they bigger than Rainer's, and that ass he could tell was amazing from his time of being a pervert. He wasn't a Motohama copy who could calculate it with his scouting glasses, but he knew just how sweet they were from that angle. In her hands, however, were stuff he didn't want a woman to find out. Especially a stranger like her, because they were porn magazines that Issei kept over the years. And to add to that, she was so interested in them that she didn't even look up to face the house owner. Excuse me, but can you put that down? Issei properly requested before a proper greeting, hiding his urges to just jump at the girl. So many wrong thoughts crossed over Issei's mind, which was troubling for his black sweatpants. She finally looked afterwards. Oh. You must be Issei. no Akase. Oh, how dead wrong she was. Her voice was soft yet firm, that made him weaken his knees. Though, he grew slightly annoyed with the fact that she didn't even properly know his name, despite barging into his house without permission. Issei, it's Issei Haidu. He grumbled as he looks off to the side. The blue-haired woman didn't reply with anything at first, instead just studied him for a moment before addressing him. Issei, huh? So I assume that Azazel had told you about me, and that I have the permission to live here with you? This brought his gaze back to her, no. I wasn't told anything about the fact that you were living here. Not that I am completely against that, Issei trailed off, repeating the statement in his thoughts. The unidentified woman hummed as she got up from the chair, setting down his magazine to his desk to examine later in the process. What did the fallen angel leader tell you, then? You mean Azazel? Issei's voice was laced with confusion which caused her to sigh in annoyance. He assumed that she meant fallen Angeles instead of fallen angel. Yes, Governor Azazel of the Grigori, your faction leader. There was a long silence after that, ignoring the music that was being played from the living room. What the hell is a Grigori, and what are you even talking about? Issei asked, breaking the silence as he stepped away from the girl as if she was insane. He is my boss. The blue-haired lady didn't say anything at first. Her thoughts were running wild as she considered what to say. He has a sacred gear, but they haven't even bothered unlocking it. Does he even know about the supernatural world or have they kept him in the dark? She then spoke, tell me, Issei. Do you believe in the supernatural? Do you think angels, demons, dragons, and gods exist? Issei's face became unreadable for a second, but when it did it was a face full of disappointment. God damn it. You are one of those kinds of chicks, all about that spiritual nonsense thinking ghosts and in-case exist. It isn't nonsense, boy. She stated strongly after Issei labeled her as a crazy chick. Look, I get it, you love supernatural stuff. And because of that, you wear those draconic eye contacts, but newsflash, stuff like that has no chance in hell in actually existing, Issei curtly assumed, not noticing the radiating heat around her. She stomped her feet, my eyes are like this because they are real, call them fake again, and I will put you on the ground. Yeah sure, if you are a dragon then I am actually a T-5000 from Terminator 7. Issei joked with a smile. But after his joke has been said, he had no idea on what was going on, except for that he was feeling some unusual pain. Issei had moved from a standing position to where he was on the floor with a woman's hand on his throat, her eyes appeared to be glowing with anger and annoyance. Issei for once felt a little fearful of what was going on with her hands on her throat. But he couldn't complain, her breasts were more visible than before and they were seriously something else. Say something that annoys me again and I will snap your neck in half right now. I didn't leave my comforting home to be ridiculed by some ignorant child who has been oblivious to the real world. I came here to learn more about this human society. Issei's throat felt drier than the Sahara Desert, he didn't know what to say in response. He doubted his own words and was afraid that they would get him killed, however, he needed to say something. Closing his eyes in preparation for his neck to be broken, he apologized. My bad. I didn't mean to cause any offense, whatever your name is. Tiamat, I am the Chaos Karma Dragon Tiamat, a Dragon King. The blue-haired woman introduced herself, letting go of the boy after his short apology. Had it been a snarky devil, Tiamat would have somewhat been suspicious. Right, Issei picked himself back up, considering if what she said was true. He was almost definitely sure that the supernatural wasn't real, but at the same time, she was ridiculously strong. Once Issei got back up to his feet, Tiamat questioned him, you still have doubt that I am an actual dragon? Her annoyance had shifted to the promised fallen angel, the man that said that he would have his best human teach her about the human society. It was time for her to fill her boredom with interest knowledge, which Azazel promised to do for the past several hundred years. Yet he wasn't even informed about the supernatural side of the world, he was just some clueless human living a blind life. But was that why he was the best? Was it because of him not knowing about the supernatural that made him the best to teach her? So if you're a dragon, does that mean you have, a real dragon-like form? Issei was on a thin ice, not knowing what to exactly say. After all, this was still a bit nonsense to him. But a sigh, she answers, yes, why do you ask? Issei then looked at the floor as he scratched the back of his head with weird embarrassment. Do you think you could show it to me? I mean, maybe it could help me come to terms with the stuff you just said, about the supernatural actually existing. Some words just aren't going to cut it. Tiamat didn't say anything at first, she couldn't turn into her actual form, otherwise this building would be leveled into disaster. Why should I though? What will I be gaining from you? She may not be as violent as she used to be in the past, but she was a dragon, and like all dragons, she wanted something in return. Well, I was going to make dinner, oh shit the pot. Realizing that the water was probably boiling like crazy, he rushed out while nearly shouting. Angel, stop playing music. The black cylinder complied with him and stopped playing the audio. Tiamat felt a little insulted by what she just witnessed. He was in the middle of striking a deal with her and he straight up left for some boiling water. Curiosity getting the better of her, she decided to see what was more important than a deal with the strongest Dragon King. Walking out of the bedroom, the Dragon King was greeted by the sight of Issei pouring some type of substance into the pot of boiling water, followed by moving to a nearby drawer. He grabbed a spatula-like item, closed the drawer and moved back to the oven and began stirring the noodles. Tiamat, who observed Issei's activity, tilted her head rather cutely as she tried to find out what he was trying to making. However, she couldn't quite figure out what Issei was trying to make as the smell was odd and new. Seeing that she wasn't going to get anything with her sensible nose, she decided to probe him on what he was making. "What are you making and what's in it?" Issei, who was focused on the noodles, turned his head to the self-proclaiming dragon and gave her a confused look. I'm making macaroni and cheese, it's basically noodles, but you mix cheese with it." Tiamat used her enhanced smelling once again to try detecting the cheese part but didn't smell any cheese coming from the pot. "I don't smell any cheese." "Well, that's because I haven't added the cheese yet." He then paused and gave her another look before speaking again. This time he was a little hesitant. "You have cooked before, right?" Tiamat felt a little insulted by that comment. She had roasted tons of her prey before devouring them, so she was familiar with cooking. "Yes, I have cooked before if you must know. How do you think I lived for this long as a Dragon King if I couldn't?" He stopped his stirring as he gave it some thought before shrugging. "I don't know if you're really a Dragon King. Besides, I just assumed you have tons of servants to attend to your every need, so why bother cooking for yourself?" She scoffed in response as he returned to stirring the noodles in the pot. He occasionally lifted his spatula up to check the noodles before dumping them back in. "You're really clueless about the supernatural side of this world, aren't you?" "Obviously, why do you think I called you a crazy lady?" The tick mark had appeared on Tiamat's head. The one thing she didn't like was being called crazy. She was not crazy, she was perfectly sane and healthy. "Call me crazy one more time and I am putting your face in that pot," the fierce Dragon King warned, crossing her arms under her bust. Hearing this, Issei felt his blood turn cold. He had no doubt that she would. "Maybe I should change the subject." Issei could feel her eyes still on him, piercing his very soul. It was terrifying in Issei's standards. He thought Tiamat wanted an apology from him. The brown-haired boy decided to change the subject to escape from her hate glaring. "So you seeing someone? Or are you, well you know," Issei still had a lingering doubt that she was really a dragon. "Are you trying to ask me if I am in a relationship?" She questioned back, in which she got a nod from Issei. "No, I'm not seeing someone at the moment, or am I really looking for someone to be in relationship with?" "Oh." Issei blankly replied, realizing that he was going to be a lesson keeper. "Wait, if Tiamat decides to stay here and she isn't looking for some type of a relationship, doesn't that mean I can't date anybody until she decides to leave? I can't bring them home because Tiamat's here, so why do I have to share a room with her? She's only going to ruin my life." Issei was trying to think of a way to get rid of her before it was too late. Seeing that a silence had ensued between the two of them, Tiamat decided to return the question. "And you? Do you have a mate?" Issei had misinterpreted what she was implying and assumed that she was saying something else entirely. "Nope, I am single and ready to mingle." He had assumed this was her way of trying to subtly offer herself, being the slight pervert he is. Tiamat looked at him rather strangely after hearing this proud declaration and couldn't really fathom why he sounded happy to be single, all the while Issei was cussing himself mentally for reading that wrong. "She is a dragon. She wouldn't be into me. I'm an idiot." His cursing though was short-lived when he realized the noodles were done and quickly moved to a top cabinet and grabbed a white drainer. He then moved to the fridge and grabbed half a bar of butter, which was 4 tablespoons, the carton of milk, and moved to the sink, placing the drainer inside the sink and the other ingredients around it. Tiamat watched intently as he then moved to the pot, picked it up and scurried over to the sink. This was all interesting to her, for she had never seen someone create this type of food. Deciding to get a closer look at what he was doing, she moved to where she was nearly breathing down his neck. Issei knew she was right behind him, but that didn't stop him from pouring the pot into the drainer, draining all of the water from the pot, leaving only the noodles in the drainer. Setting down the pot, he picked up the drainer and poured the noodles back into the pot, along with adding some milk and the butter. Moving past her, he then returned to the oven and picked up a cheese packet that the macaroni came with and covered the noodles with it and began to mix the ingredients after turning the oven off. After about a minute of mixing, he came to a stop and went to another cabinet and grabbed 2 glass bowls and poured half into one and the rest into another one. "Do you want some?" He wasn't sure if Tiamat would want some, but there was no harm in asking. Tiamat looked at the now cheesy noodles with an unreadable expression. "It doesn't smell that bad, and I didn't have anything before leaving my home, so there wouldn't be any harm in trying this." Sure, came her hesitant response as she picked up the bowl and watched as Issei walked over to a drawer and opened it to grab a spoon. Following his example, she picked up a spoon and closed the drawer before closing it and following behind him as he moved to the small table where he would eat. Now Issei would have eaten in his room, but because Tiamat was here he chose to eat at the table because there would be no place for her to eat. Well, there was the bed, but he didn't want to risk food staining his bed. As the two sat down, Issei couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The reason why was because it had been a good while since he had cooked for a girl. Even though it was unintentionally and a simple dish that didn't take much skill. This isn't much, but I do hope you like it. These are one of my favorite dishes, spoke Issei before digging into his food. Tiamat merely watched him take a bite out of his food before doing the same. Tiamat froze after her taste buds felt the macaroni. What is this? It is so cheesy and gooey, but it is oh so delicious. He says this isn't much, but it tastes so wonderful. I need another bite. Before Issei could even take a second bite, he was met by the sight of Tiamat scarfing down her food with a godlike speed. She was done before he could even scoop his second spoonful. Issei, I want more, her voice was full of command, and the way she was eyeballing his food made it clear that she wanted it now. Issei bit his lip as he contemplated his choices. He could either give her the food and end up having to eat a snack, or he could deny her and risk her womanly wrath. He didn't want to give her his food, but she was his guest, and if she really was a dragon, who knew how things could go. With reluctance he moved his bowl towards Tiamat who smiled brightly, revealing her perfect white teeth. Goodbye, my sweet delicious macaroni, Issei sulked as he witnessed the bowl being taken from his grasp. Issei observed Tiamat devour his dish until a phone rang in his pockets. It was a text from Vali, who replied to his question if Vali was up to game. Sure, just give me 30 minutes and I'll be online. 30 minutes, huh? I guess that is enough time to talk about the supernatural world with Tiamat here. Issei thought, before realizing that Tiamat was already finished. The second thought then hit him as he remembered what Tiamat said earlier. Does that mean Vali knows about the supernatural too? He is Azazel's surrogate son, so Azazel would tell him right. So Tiamat, Issei started, causing her to lock her eyes on his. The supernatural world is real, and my boss is this Grigori thing, correct? He really didn't know how to begin this conversation, but he felt asking about his boss would be the best course of action. The Grigori isn't a thing, it's a faction, the fallen angel faction to be correct. Your boss Azazel is the leader of them all. Tiamat explained, shifting into her chair into a more comfortable position. Issei couldn't help but to revert his eyes back to her fine breasts that jiggled beneath her blue dress. His stare however didn't go unnoticed. My eyes are up here. To emphasize her point she pointed to her eyes which caused Issei to go red and mumble his apology. Sorry guess. Tiamat raised an elegant eyebrow as he trailed off. She knew what he was implying, but still, that didn't mean he could just gawk at her, especially when she was explaining something vital to him. He needed to know about this ridiculous stuff if he was going to have to live with her. Anyways, all of the things that you consider supernatural are real, gods, dragons, kitsunes, angels, devils, you name it. They are all real, Tiamat continued before pausing to let it sink in. It was obviously going to be a major shocker, so she could understand if the boy had questions. So that means that mermaids, fairies, nekomatas, and all of those other creatures exist. Issei joked, but also curious at the same time. Issei got his answer when she nodded, and his face became unreadable for a split second before breaking into a perverted one with stars in his eyes. Tiamat, you need to introduce me to some of these hot babes if you know any. Now it was Tiamat's turn to have an unreadable expression as she thought of what he just said. That's all he cares about, some hot women. He should be asking about how they all exist or about the abilities of each species. Tiamat thought. Even if I wanted to, I am not going to help you. I came here to learn more about the human society, like how a phone works and many other confusing technologies. Tiamat demanded, causing Issei to frown a bit. But Issei had a question, remembering the event that happened in the club. But wait, then how did you answer Azazel's phone call? He called you right in front of me, and you answered using your own phone, didn't you? Hearing this caused Tiamat to smirk on the inside. It would be a perfect time to show him what the supernatural world has to offer. That is because he told me to press this green button when he called me. She took out a modern-day phone and pressed the power button on the side. Tiamat pointed at the green button on the touchscreen to show what Azazel told her to press. Issei just nodded his head after seeing this. He was pretty sure this woman was just strong and not an actual dragon. All of this was just nonsense in his eyes if he truly thought about it, because her being an actual dragon is like him actually being a T-5000 from Terminator. Well, this is a lot to take in, but I'm not going to let this affect my plans, so if you want you could sleep on the couch for the night, finally spoke Issei as he points to the couch in the living room. Tiamat followed his finger pointing and gave him a stern look. The couch. That doesn't look as comfy as the chair I sat in before, nor did it look as comfy as the bed I saw earlier. The brown-haired prankster had to cover his mouth to prevent himself from laughing at her. She looked like an angry child that had gotten her favorite toy taken away. That couch is comfy, I would know from experience. Tiamat was half tempted to argue with him about where to sleep, but it was his home in the end. She realized this and sighed, fine, I guess I will sleep on the couch. Back during the relationship days, Rainer had kicked him out of his own bed, sometimes when she was mad at him, so that couch had become his temporary sleeping place time to time. Issei watched as she angrily marched her way over to his couch and planted herself onto the leather. It was kind of adorable. He was about to leave her alone to her own devices, but realized that he should probably get her a blanket, considering it could get cold in here sometimes. Going into the laundry room and getting a soft fluffy black blanket, he returned to Tiamat, who was already trying to get into a comfortable position, but seemed to be having problems. She was turning left and right wildly into every direction. It was kind of funny, but Issei decided not to laugh at her. Here, this should help keep you warm in the night. He then attempts to put it on her only for her to snatch it away and protested in a proud manner. I can put it on myself. TCH. Not even a day in with this lady, I am going to call Azazel tomorrow and tell him to get this whack job out of my apartment. He grumbled as he turns around to leave her alone in the living room. Until, Tiamat decided to ask him a question. Issei, what is that black mirror across from me? Sighing on the inside, he turns to look at the living room's television and says with a small trace of annoyance. That is a television, also known as TV. You use it to watch entertaining stuff or sometimes even play video games. Tiamat looked at it with confusion, and Issei was hoping she wouldn't ask any more ridiculous questions. How do I watch these things if I only see myself? She was clearly a simpleton, no doubt about it. The hot beauty on his couch didn't know anything, all of her brain cells were put into her rack and ass. A bitter and annoyed Issei walked over to the remote sitting next to his white video game device and turned on the television for her. The show that was playing on the TV was a popular American TV show and was luckily playing its very first episode. Issei had already seen a few seasons of it, and with dragons being one of the entities in the popular show. He hands her the remove, press this button to turn the device on and off, press this to move channels, and press this for the menu. I'm sure you speak English, so you'll figure everything out once you get there. Tiamat listened intently, which was kind of cute in a way because she had a cute expression on her face as she looked at each button that he pointed at. This should keep her preoccupied for the rest of the morning, or at least it should give me enough time to play for a while before getting some sleep for the night. Sunday afternoon, 2:30 p.m, Kuo Town. Issei stirred from his sleep by the smell of something burning. He didn't know what it exactly was, but he could tell something was burning, especially from inside his house. As he groggily opened his eyes, he was met by a strange sight as well. Instead of waking up on his soft comfy mattress, he found himself on the floor with his head slightly resting on the wall and his body facing the corner. What in the fuck? Why am I on the floor? Why does it smell like something is burning, but why am I on the floor again? Why won't this boil? Yelled a voice filled with anger that answered the former question, but still left the latter clueless. That damn woman. He roared as he got up from the floor and smashed his way towards the living room, ending up in the kitchen after a few stomps. He didn't expect what to see at all. In the kitchen, standing over the stove, was Tiamat, who had just breathed blue flames onto a pot filled with sink water, incinerating it into nothing but ash and dust. Shush, just breathed fire. Issei was in disbelief as the pale blue-haired woman turned her blazing eyes towards him. Why won't the water boil, Issei? I put the water in the pot and placed it on this thing, yet the water won't boil. This is the fourth pot and nothing has changed. He didn't respond to her question and looked at the stove horrifically that was covered with black ashes. Was she trying to make macaroni? He then looked behind her to see his last box of mac and cheese torn open with the packs of cheese scattered on the counter. His eyes then shifted to the stove and saw the red light not on because the stove wasn't on. Tiamat gave him a sharp look, telling him to explain what he meant. See these 5 switches? He moved past her and pointed at each switch. She just nodded her head in response. Well, you turn this one on if you are wanting to boil something. Seeing that Tiamat understood what Issei explained, Issei smiled as he closed his eyes before shouting at the woman in front of him at the top of his lungs. Now why the hell did you burn my goddamn utensils and food when you could have just asked me? Tiamat was taken back by the sudden anger flaring from him, but she didn't show any signs of shock. Instead, she narrowed her eyes at him. Who are you to talk to me like that? I'm the top dragon king, and I could burn you alive if I wanted to right now. She said in a commanding tone. Dragon king my ass, well you are living in my home, you are nothing but a guest, and guests don't go burning the owner's belongings. Issei barked, not backing down at all. He didn't care if this woman was a goddess, there were rules when staying at someone's territory. Talk to me in such a tone and I will destroy you. I am the Chaos Karma Dragon, the one dragon that strikes fear into the hearts of mortals. Tiamat declared back, her pride as a dragon king not wanting to be shamed by some pesky little human. I will talk to you with whatever voice I want. First, you invaded my home, then you nearly killed me for not believing you, then you ate my food, not to mention kicked me off of my own bed, and then finally nearly burned my home down, instead of asking for some help. How would you like it if someone did that to you? Huh? Issei got in her face and poked her in the chest after each reason. He didn't want to die, but he wasn't going to quiver in fear and let this creature in a woman's curvy body get away with all of what she did. Clueless or not, Issei was going to teach her how society worked, and if that meant he had to get a little aggressive and be demanding, he would not think twice. The brunette growled at the man before her. She then grabbed him by the throat, easily lifting him off of the ground. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? You are nothing compared to me. You should be happy that I'm even here, most would kill to be in my company. The victim scoffed at her statement. I am Issei fucking Haidu, and I want you out of my home. Go get some other poor idiot to fucking kiss your ass as you destroy their home, for that is all you seem capable of doing. Issei closed his eyes preparing for the worst to occur, but someone unexpected intervened at the last minute. Tiamat, put him down please. Issei opened his eyes and looked to the kitchen entrance, seeing Azazel with his 12 black angelic wings sprouted from his back. Azazel? The two exclaimed in surprise, which gave Issei a chance to yell at his boss for bringing a real dragon to his home. However, this time, Azazel had a rare expression on his face that wanted to observe more than question. He was serious, for once in his life. This child had insulted me and ridiculed me at every turn, yet you want me to put him down? Curtly spoke Tiamat as she glared at Issei with burning hatred. Yes, look, I know Issei can be a pain in the ass. Hey. But that doesn't mean you can just kill him for it, plus he is usually a big old softie. He is just a little upset that his stuff was burnt, finished Azazel, ignoring the indignant hey from Issei. Tiamat in response looked at Issei, her eye softening as she stared at him. HMPH, fine. Azazel, I would like to learn from someone else about the human society, since Issei here doesn't prefer my company, firmly stated Tiamat as she released Issei and looked at Azazel. Issei didn't say anything and just watched Azazel as he rubbed Hitgoti before shaking his head. Sorry, but Issei is your partner on this, he is the best one, we have to teach you. Did you not just see what happened? She nearly killed me again and burned my stuff. What if that was my porn, or worse, my video games? Issei rambled with a hint of anger in his voice. He was trying to keep himself in control, but was having a hard time. I wouldn't have tried killing you if you didn't make fun of me. I have been trying here, and all you do is yell at me. I'm trying to learn here, sharply replied the brunette as she glared at Issei. Hey kids, calm down. Azazel yelled as he clapped his hands, drawing attention to himself. How about you both apologize and start fresh? Sure, this morning wasn't the greatest we've ever had, but Issei, don't you think this would be a good time to teach her about how society here works? Issei wouldn't admit it, but he did slightly enjoy her company. It hadn't been hectic here since Rainer left him, so it was nice in its own weird, strange way. With a sigh, he complies. My apologies, Tiamat. For yelling at you, of course. I should have believed you and remembered that you're new to all this. Next time though, could you just ask for some help? She looked at the hand Issei extended in an attempt to make a peace offering. You had your reasons to be angry, and I didn't exactly make the most smartest move. Sorry, I should have asked. Tiamat sighed, pouting in a cute way. Once the apology was over, Issei couldn't help but to hint a grin after staring at the dragon for a short while. You can make your own food since you'll be spending time with me here. Just remember to ask instead of trying to do everything your own. And that's what humans do, we strive to survive by helping each other out. Tiamat giggled, thinking of the pornography magazine she read from yesterday. Is that why you have those books of naked girls? Because you don't know about the female body? The smile planted on the boy's face was washed away instantly as Azazel began to hysterically laugh at the sudden joke Tiamat managed to spit out. Those are collector's items, it's a guy thing, Issei stated strongly, only for Tiamat to start laughing as well. When Azazel managed to hold in the rest of his laughter, he stopped and gave an idea for the fitting duo. Anyways, I got an idea. Since she burned your kitchen and food, why don't you guys go shopping together? Shopping? Tiamat questioned as she glared at Azazel. What is shopping? Basically it's where you go to markets and buy items you need, Issei poorly explained in hopes that she would get what he meant, but instead she got the wrong idea. Why would I want to spend gold if I could just take it? Issei's left eye twitched after hearing her response. Because that's obviously stealing, and stealing is against the law in the human society. And we don't use gold, we use paper bills in this day and age. Issei informed. You don't use gold. What about diamonds? Tiamat asked curiously. He replied with a shake of his head. Emeralds? Same response. Sapphires? Same response again. Amethyst and rubies? Again with a shake of his head. The blue-haired dragon felt outdated and old, her treasure storage stored tons and billions worth of gems and jewels, but now they apparently meant nothing. All of what she had hoarded wasn't worth a thing nowadays. so all my wealth is worthless in the eyes of the humans. Issei had to resist the urge to facepalm in fear of her getting the wrong idea again. I never said that, we just use paper bills as a form of currency. And there's too many reasons to list, but mainly it's because they don't nearly weigh as much and is easier to carry around. Her face was full of concerns, her treasure was still valuable and rich, but she just would have to use these paper bills to buy things. Well, Issei, it looks like you have everything under control here, Azazel interrupted, earning the attention of the new roommates. So I will just go relay this information to Vali and Kuroka. They have been waiting for you to find out about the supernatural world after all. Boy. Where do you think you are, Goga? Issei attempted to grab the fallen angel before he threw an object to the ground while yelling smoke bomb. And swiftly ran away from the scene as the smoke filled Issei's lungs, causing him to cough uncontrollably. Tiamat stood there and watched as Issei continued to cough while essaying to call Azazel. Now that I think of it, that bastard Azazel might have been right. This boy does look like a softie, he acts like he hates Azazel but doesn't seem so. Azazel, you bastard. I know you have your phone on you, so pick up, or I swear to all the gods that apparently exist that I will burn your goddamn porn collection. Hearing that, Tiamat began to have second thoughts. Issei, are we going to do this shopping thing, or are you going to yell at your phone all day in hopes of Azazel actually responding? Issei looked up from his phone and sighed. This was his day off from work, but it looked like he was going to be working on something else. With Tiamat not being part of his household, it was now his job to take care of her while being her mentor. Not that he wanted to complain, though. Sunday afternoon, 3:43 p.m, Kuo Academy. The walk was supposed to be 10 minutes. They had left right after the kitchen incident, but yet it took them nearly an hour to arrive at the targeted store. And the reason was simple and clear, every man the two had encountered during their trip to the store tried to either ask her out or straight up tried to arrange a marriage. He was literally right next to her when they were attempting to make a move on her, but that didn't stop them from trying. In their eyes, they believed that they could make her fall for them with some honeyed words and handful of cash. At first, it was enjoyable, seeing Tiamat shut down every proposal delivered to her. However, as time passed on, it got more annoying and quickly became a nuisance. The first man to make an attempt had it coming to him, after the proposal Tiamat used her draconic strength to downright crush the man's skull, knocking him out completely. It wasn't the best action to respond with, but it was quite entertaining as Issei got to witness her true dragon power. Especially when she demanded Issei to explain why she couldn't just punch someone who annoyed her out of the blue like that. She had fended off male dragons in the past by beating the absolute flames out of them, so why couldn't she beat up a human that is practically doing the same? The other reason why they took so long is because of them running across a woman's clothing store where they had dresses out on display and she found them all to be in her taste and rather stylish. He had to treat her like a child and drag her away from the store while she protested about how she wants the dresses hanging on the mannequins. Needless to say, what was supposed to be a simple errand had turned into a pain in the ass for Issei, but in a way, it was kind of worth it. For he was having an enjoyable time and got the chance to witness the reactions of Tiamat when Issei told her a few facts about the human society. Alright Tiamat, remember to stick close to me, I don't need you to wander off and end up searching all over for you. Issei sternly informed, only for Tiamat to not pay any attention to the brown-haired boy. Rather, she was more interested in the sliding door that was the entrance of the store. Give me strength, oh great god. To complete these quests and defeat these monstrous bosses. Issei joked to himself in his thoughts. He was using one of his favorite characters' line in a MOBA game that he played, although this task was pretty similar to quests, and the bosses were Tiamat's dumb questions. Issei, how are the doors opening without any magic being used? Tiamat questioned with a sweeter tone, glaring at the sliding glass door. It was nice when she talked to him like that, it got rid of the thought of the absolute ruthless side of her from earlier. It's because we aren't using magic, Issei started his answer, as he heard some guy make a whistle noise of approval directed to Tiamat. We use electricity, and magic is considered as a fairy tale these days. It's just a simple mechanic. Leading the way, he entered the hypermarket with Tiamat following behind him. He didn't, however, notice the small stop she had before rushing into the store and catching up to him. Assuming she was behind him, he decided to speak as he got a cart to carry what they needed. Okay, so we need metal pots, boxes of mac and cheese, snacks, asparagus, potatoes, and either chicken or steak, really just depends on the pricing really. We want to get them while they're on sale. Mac and cheese should be our first priority, the fierce Dragon King said with absolutely no hesitation whatsoever. We'll get that and the other non-spoiling food first, it is always best to get those things first. Remember, when you're going shopping for something like mac and cheese and steak, then you get the mac and cheese first because it doesn't spoil. This was met with a nod of approval by Issei. She felt a little proud of herself getting that right. She had never gone shopping for her food, but doing it was slightly fun. Not as fun as chasing her prey, however, but it was fun in a way. The two then begin their adventure into the food sections. Issei had to explain nearly every type of food as they passed by them, since Tiamat would constantly stop and grab a boxer bag of whatever that met her draconic eye. He didn't mind a lot since most of it was just either a different brand of chips or a different kind of noodles and soup, which he had a lot of familiarity with. "Tiamat, can you grab one box of mac and cheese please, while I get the canned corn?" He would have got it himself, but he decided that it was better to have her try getting somethings herself. "One box won't satisfy my hunger though," Tiamat pouted as she crossed her arms under her bust, causing the boy's eyes to move downwards and glare at her the amazing pair. Noticing this, Tiamat thought of something clever. "Issei, do you want to perhaps touch these?" Her tone was sweet and very enticing as she began to fondle herself, not trusting his own words. Issei simply nodded, causing Tiamat to giggle. She still had it. "I could allow that to happen if you allow me to get as many boxes I want." She had him hooked, all she had to do was just reel him in. Picking up the pace of the fondling, Issei found himself becoming mesmerized by her breasts. However, the thought of buying all the boxes of mac and cheese could possibly go broke. "Boy. Stop trying to seduce me, you seductress." He nearly shouted as he turned away from her. He hated himself for not accepting the deal, but he just couldn't take the gamble with that woman. Tiamat clicked her tongue in annoyance. She was so close and was sure that he would have given in to her deal. "Also, the mac and cheese are packed up in boxes of 5. So if you really want that much I will allow 2 sets." "Well, why didn't he say that? I would have never fondled myself then." Tiamat shouted to herself as she glared at the brown-haired male moving over to the canned vegetables. Upon returning to the cart, Issei was greeted by the sight of Tiamat carrying 3 packs of mac and cheese, something that he didn't agree to. Whoa, I said 2 boxes of mac and cheese, that's obviously fucking 3. Tiamat gave him a stern look as she finished placing them in the cart. "Yes, but I just fondled myself in front of you, so I want 3. She was upset and became even more infuriated when Issei's stupid grin appeared on his stupid face once again. "Well, I didn't ask you to do that," Issei trailed off before falling silent as Tiamat gave him the deadliest glare he had ever seen in his life. "But because you like it so much and it is your first time going shopping, I will allow it." Issei didn't release his sigh of relief, but he was satisfied when that death stare was replaced with a cheerful smile. Tiamat could be dangerously scary when she wants to. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the once Triumphant for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. See you in the next video. Goodbye.